Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you for those kind comments of the work of the senior team and also all the frontline officers and staff that have actually delivered all of this. I thought it was opportune really to reset the clock for you in terms of reflecting on what a busy summer it's been in all sorts of different ways, and begin in terms of picking a few highlights out from the report and bringing it up to speed, I suppose, because you mentioned COVID, but we've had a fine this week for breach of quarantine regulations, which reminds us that the issue is here, but also it is being policed. I think one of the themes today was about me reflecting that when I was appointed, I talked about here being a unique organisation with unique challenges. And I think the report you've seen, and hopefully have time to digest now, reflects some of that breadth. I'm also conscious, both within here and probably further afield, there's a lot of public interest in a number of pressing issues at the moment, not least the continuing investigation into the funeral of Bobby Storey. You mentioned DCC Webster. I'm meeting him myself this evening to get an update on the progress of his investigation. Clearly, I was pleased to see the comments by the coroner following the stage read in the inquest that relates to the tragic death of Noah Donoghue. And again, we respect the sort of the strength of feeling around this issue, and also some of the commentary and emotion around the policing of the Black Lives Matter sort of protests. But obviously, I have to temper what I say today, because in different ways, each of those matters is to some degree or the subject of either inquiry or investigation. So I'm not trying to inhibit questions, but I will be limited in what I can say. You referenced some of the work we have done over the summer, and I think it's important to put on record my thanks for the steadfast leadership of ACC Barbara Gray and her team, and her work with partners that brought to book 10 people accused of very serious terrorism offences, and what has been our largest single operation of its kind in a decade. And the report highlights some of the planning that went into this investigation. I think in other areas, I'm pleased to report that our pursuit of other types of criminality continues apace. You mentioned, Chair, about serious organised crime, but there's some detail there in relation to the operation we supported the National Crime Agency on, and also the ongoing work of the Paramilitary Crime Task Force and some specifics. Turning to some of the other issues of the summer, obviously the different contexts of praise, bonfires, etc., has produced some issues of concern, notwithstanding, or not least, the 29 officers that were injured, and that also is now subject of an investigation in the disorder in Distillery Street. But on the other side of the coin, I was pleased to report that the work that ACC Mark McHugh has done to actually bring forward now our first ever memorandum of understanding with other key government departments that will hopefully prevent a clearer shared purpose in the policing of bonfires, but also prevent a repetition of issues like we saw in Distillery Street. I think a quick nod to the future as well today. Obviously, a lot of the conversation, both in here and wider afield, is often about COVID and the effects of it on our daily lives. But Brexit is coming at us over the hill, and the report gives a nod to that. But clearly, we need to remain on our front foot for preparations of making sure that legislation is joined up as best it can be, because we're no clearer yet is there going to be a deal or not. And clearly, if there isn't, we need to be able to mitigate some of the effects. I think operationally, there's some good news to report. We've just completed a selection process that Mark and I and Julie Harrison, actually from the Department of Justice, supported us on, where we've been pleased to make offers to 9 people for promotion to the rank of Chief Superintendent. I'm told that's the biggest amount in one go for some considerable time, which is good news in terms of developing talent and ambition in the organisation. 2 of those candidates are women, and 1 is from a Catholic background. Also, I think it's important to, sometimes you forget in the hurly-burly of this previous commitments. So we're nearly able now to report further meetings on Monday, I think it is, to finalise the filling of the 400 posts that we committed to put into April policing. That clearly is one of my keynote promises to the board, and a thing that Mark and I have worked hard on with the team over the last 12 months to bring to fruition, whilst recognising there was more to do. And also to signal the launch of 2 new operational teams in the next couple of weeks. One is quite an overt roads policing team, where we'll be rolling out a new group of officers to police the roads using automatic number plate recognition cameras, an intercept team in a way you may have seen on some UK television programmes, but that reaffirms our commitment to policing the road network to tackle travelling criminality in particular and make the roads safer. And also a pilot where we're working with TransLink to put officers onto the rail network to reduce antisocial behaviour, to support staff that are working on the rail network, and also to reduce the risks of criminals exploiting what sometimes might be seen as a bit of a soft underbelly by moving drugs and other contraband around the country without supervision and surveillance in that sense. It'll be a 3-month pilot, which will review at the end to see if it's worth continuing or indeed increasing the investment. I think finally, I think it's important that I get the chance to use this meeting to pay my tribute, which I know Mark shares, to the sterling efforts of officers that are policing in a COVID environment. It's still part of our daily lives. You referenced, Chair, the infections that we've been party to. And I think, again, it's tribute to some of the sterling efforts of staff that we haven't been affected worse so far by infections. I still think that one of the biggest achievements has been the specialist COVID teams who have to step into that space of knowing you go into an incident like other frontline emergency workers where someone may be troubled by the illness, either as a victim, a witness, or indeed a suspect. I think their work is quite remarkable, but also the general organisational endeavour to keep going despite the restrictions it's put on our working lives is noteworthy, and I'd like to pay my thanks to the officers and staff that have done that. But I'm conscious there's a lot to get through today, so I'll press pause there and take questions, Chair.